This is for week 3 of Coursera's Introduction to Music Production. Hi everyone, this is Tom Whitehead from Atlanta, Georgia. Let's begin by reviewing the categories of effects. Sound effects are plugins in the digital audio workstation environment, are also known as digital signal processors. There are a wide variety of different plugins, effects, or digital signal processors on the market. All of these plugins and effects, or DSPs, fall into one of 3 categories that relate back to the principles of sound. Dynamic effects relates to the amplitude or volume of the sound source. Delay effects relate to the propagation or movement and time of the sound. And filter effects relate to the sound source or timbre or sound quality. Let's start by briefly reviewing dynamic effects. Some examples of dynamic effects are compressors, limiters, expanders, and gates. These all do different things, but all affects the dynamic range of your sound, or the sounds from loudest to softest. Let's take a look at a compressor in my DAW Pro Tools 8. For dynamic effects, we can place these right on the track itself, rather than routing it to an auxiliary track for a send, return, wet, dry setup. I will explain the benefits of that with the delay effects. On my track inserts, I will pull up under Dynamics a basic compressor limiter. You can see many different settings on this basic plugin. Different compressors might have different layout interfaces, but generally do the same thing. They compress the dynamic range based upon the settings you choose. By changing the attack, ratio, release, and gain, and threshold, you are changing the way the compressor functions by telling how much gain to add or remove, how quickly to turn on and off, and how much overall volume of the sound source you will hear in the mix. Take a listen to a clean and compressed signal. Clean signal. Compressed signal. You can hear the compressed signals loses its dynamic range, and the soft and loud notes are playing at the same level. This can be used in a mix creatively, but you want to caution yourself with overly compressing a signal and erasing the musician's dynamic choices when performing their music. Next, we will look at delay effects. Some examples of delay effects are reverbs, delays, phasers, flangers, and choruses. All of these DSPs affect the propagation and timing of a sound source. Delay effects are a great way to create a space in your mix. One great tool for creating space is our reverb effect. Let's briefly look at our reverb in my Pro Tools 8 DAW. There are many different types of reverbs: plates, springs, chambers, impulse response, and digital. Digital reverberators use various signal processing algorithms in order to create the reverb effect. Since reverberation is essentially caused by a very large number of echoes, a simple reverberation algorithm uses multiple feedback delay circuits to create a large decaying series of echoes. On this setup, we will create a stereo audio and stereo auxiliary track. Our DAW is only so powerful, and we want to set up our sessions in a way to maximize the amount of processing power without creating delay or latency or crashing during playback. We also do this with delay effects to help limit our number of voices used during our mix sessions. We'll set up our input of our auxiliary track to bus 1, 2. And on our audio track under the sends column, we will create a send on bus 1, 2, so our audio track will be going to our auxiliary track. We will not put the reverb directly on the audio track itself, rather on the aux track. This is setting up our wet dry signal. I will select my TrueVerb plugin, and we can see a whole host of different settings for this plugin. On this particular plugin, there are default settings based upon the size of the room or space you want to convey. I will load a cathedral reverb, and you can listen to the difference between a dry or unprocessed signal and a wet or processed signal. Dry signal. Wet signal. You can hear the space defined by the reverb that we set. The benefit in sending a wet-dry sends signal, you can send multiple different channels to the same reverb, creating the same space for your different instruments without using a lot of processing power. Our last group of effects are the filter effects. Some examples of filter effects are equalizers, high, low, and bandpass filters. These DSPs affect the sound quality or timbre of the sound source. Let's take a closer look in my DAW at an EQ. In my Pro Tools 8 DAW, we will load a 7-band EQ directly on the track itself. We do not have to send this through a routing system like we did with our delay effects. This EQ works by dividing the range of frequencies of human hearing into 7 different bands. You can increase or decrease, notch out, or bump up certain frequencies for a desired effect. In mixing, we use EQs to complement and give our instruments and vocals their own space in the frequency spectrum, without masking one another. Listen to how EQ can make one sound source seem like it's coming from a record player or old stereo by cutting the high and low frequencies and only leaving the mids. Thank you very much for watching.